Welcome to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Thanks for joining us, folks. It is June 23rd, 2025, and we are so grateful that you are tuning in today. A lot going on in the world. Obviously, we've got a military expert, retired colonel, joining us to discuss the latest with Iran and the United States, and also what's going on in Africa. We have the man who's going to unseat Lindsey Graham from his Senate seat, purporting to represent the great state of South Carolina. And then, of course, we have the great Dr. Peter McCullough on the latest threats to the health of our children and also what the government and what we can do to protect them. But first, a word from the Word. This comes out of John 16, verse 33. The Bible reads, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Amen, 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 folks. And that's good to remind ourselves of that every single day. I do also want you to go check out our friends at classicalconversations.com. The CEO there, a good friend of the show, Robert Bortons. We're going to have him back here real soon. He does the great podcast, Refining Rhetoric. You can find him at refiningrhetoric.com, addressing all the critical issues of our day, the culture, the education, the politics, all of it right there at Refining Rhetoric. Now, folks, at the time that we are recording, the Iranian regime has been striking U.S. air bases in the Middle East, including in Qatar and in Iraq. I want to show you this clip.
الله أكبر تعال مدام
So Trump pointed out, actually, that when the U.S. killed Iran's Soleimani, the general from the terrorist group, the Revolutionary Guard, whatever they call themselves, back in 2020, Iran sent some face-saving strikes that were actually not intended to kill any troops. Could this be a similar situation? Check this out.
Before you go too far, would have never happened with me. I had Iran in check. You know, we hit them very hard for something that they did, and they had to hit back. They feel they have to do that, and I understand that. Do you know they called me to tell me we're going to hit a certain location, but we're not going to hit it. It's going to be outside of the perimeters.
Who called you?
Iran called me. Iran called for me. And they let us know, and we had 16 missiles went off. I believe it was 16. 6 or 7 failed in the air.
When was this?
This was prior to the attack on a fort that we had where they hit back. Do you remember when they sent 18 missiles or 16 missiles? 5 failed. They let us know, don't move. We're going to have to hit you back. Psychologically, we have to do that because we hit them on something. You remember. They sent 16 or 18 missiles, and we knew they weren't going to hit inside the fort. And the media was going, and now I reveal it, the media was going wild because they say it's strange. They're very accurate missiles. How come they all missed? Nobody was killed, if you remember.
Yes,
with all of those missiles, nobody was killed. Now, they had to do it because they have people and they have to show strength.
Well, who knows if this is another incident of that. We shall see in the days ahead. But Trump is saying that regime change might be necessary to, and I'm quoting, make Iran great again. He says it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Miga. Fascinating stuff. Now, of course, we all recognize that the regime in Iran is a nasty, vile group of tyrants. But we also recognize that the U.S. government has a long track record of regime change that historically has ended in disaster. Iran maybe is Exhibit A when the CIA and Jimmy Carter and the rest of the clown car masquerading as the foreign policy establishment decided to overthrow the Shah of Iran. So hopefully we don't get dragged into another quagmire. Here's J.D. Vance just this weekend on this issue.
Our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. We do not want to protract this or build this out any more than it's already been built out. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here. We believe very strongly that there are 2 pathways. There's a pathway where Iran continues to fund terrorism, continues to try to build a nuclear program, attacks American troops. That's the bad pathway for Iran, and it will be met with overwhelming force. There's another pathway on the table here. There's a pathway where Iran integrates itself into the international community, stops funding terrorism, and stops trying to pursue a nuclear weapon. This is a reset. This is an opportunity for the Iranians to take the smart path. We certainly hope.
Yeah, and we all certainly hope that this craziness stops too. Here's Pete Hegseth, the great Secretary of Defense, on this same issue.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Well, we need to be in prayer about this situation, folks. Now, just some months ago, Donald Trump shared a really interesting video on his Truth Social. It's a globalist, Jeffrey Sachs. He's on Tucker Carlson's program. Jeffrey Sachs, by the way, folks, was an advisor to the Pope. He's been a big proponent of the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. So we're not fans of Jeffrey Sachs. But what this guy says on the program is basically that the U.S. government has been fighting these wars at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been allegedly tricking the U.S. government into fighting these wars. Why Trump shared this, we don't know, but there's a lot of speculation that basically Trump was trying to knock out the last excuse there for starting off a World War III. I want you to listen to just a little bit of this. Check it out.
The war in Syria, and you may actually hear from grown-up reporters who are lying through their teeth or ignorant beyond imagining that, oh, the war in Syria, yes, Russia intervened in Syria. Well, do you know that that Obama tasked the CIA to overthrow the Syrian government, starting 4 years before Russia intervened? What kind of nonsense is that? And how many times did the New York Times report on Operation Timber Sycamore, which was the presidential order to the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad? 3 times in 10 years. This is not democracy. This is a game, and it's a game of narrative. Why did the U.S. invade Iraq in 2003? Well, first of all, it was completely phony pretenses. It wasn't, oh, we were so wrong, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They actually did focus groups in the fall of 2002 to find out what would sell that war to the American people. Abe Schultzke, if you want to know the name of the PR genius. They did focus groups on the war. They wanted the war all the time. They had to figure out how to sell the war to the American people, how to scare the shit out of the American people. It was a phony war. Where did that war come from? You know what? It's quite surprising. That war came from Netanyahu, actually. You know that? It's weird. And the way it is that Netanyahu had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's...
It goes on. It's fascinating stuff. Again, Jeffrey Sachs is not trustworthy. He is a big-time globalist. But weird why Donald Trump would share that some months ago. Now, the UN is very upset with the U.S. government over this strike on Iran. The Secretary General said he's gravely alarmed by the use of force by the United States against Iran. He is, of course, a socialist and not a decent person. But that's all we have time for today in our news segment, folks. There's much, much more. We'll have to get to it next week because there's just so much to say in this episode with our upcoming guests. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back with the great Dr. Peter McCullough. And before we get there, folks, I want you to go check out our friends at Genesis Gold Group. Go to goldwithalexnewman.com. When they first got started, the idea was to have a different kind of company here. And the founder, our friend Jonathan Rose, who's a regular on our program, he understood that 2 things were necessary to thrive in this very competitive environment. First, no more deceptive marketing tactics that Big Gold uses to try to entice customers. And secondly, spiritual guidance was absolutely necessary if we're going to succeed in helping Americans protect their life savings from the crazy economic situation that we find ourselves in. So go check it out, goldwithalexnewman.com, and stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses GoBHB. GoBHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Thanks, folks, for staying with us. We have a very special guest joining us in a moment, Dr. Peter McCullough. But before we get there, folks, the MAHA report has just recently been released. And you know, if you're a regular viewer of this show, you already knew that we had a major problem. American children are some of the sickest children on the face of the earth, and yet we're spending more money on producing these sick children than virtually any other place in the world. It's simply astounding. CDC data show that almost half of American youngsters have some sort of chronic disease, which is off the charts and which is a relatively new phenomenon. So the MAHA report dug into this, and they found several factors that they believe are contributing. And joining us to discuss these incredible findings is the great Dr. Peter McCullough. He's a cardiologist, public health expert. He's been on this show many times. He was one of the earliest voices sounding the alarm about the COVID lies, about the injection dangers. And so he has established himself. And of course, he's been vindicated on everything. Dr. McCullough, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Alex.
It's great to have you. So let's talk about this MAHA report. What do you think? What did they do a good job of tracking down the things that are making our children sick, between the food and the over medicalization and the lack of activity? Did they do a good job?
Yeah, on children, make America healthy again. It probably should be changed to make America's children healthy again. Matcha is legitimate. From the 1960s, when I was a kid, there were less than 1% rates of allergic diseases, neuropsychiatric disorders. There was about a 5% obesity rate, about 5%. These have skyrocketed now. This is stunning. We have rates of asthma in children, 7%, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, 11%, autism, 3.2%, and now obesity is 20%. So I think the report is on track. The healthcare of children in America has plummeted.
Yeah, it really has. And I look at the CDC's data, and I'm just astounded at how sick American youngsters have become. Dr. McCullough, when I first had my first child 15 years ago, I looked into the vaccine thing. I didn't really have a preconceived notion about whether this was a good idea or not. But I looked at it and I said, hey, these don't seem quite as safe as they're telling us, and they also don't seem quite as effective as they're telling us. One of the problems identified in this report is what they call the over-medicalization of children, and also the exposure of our children to what they call the aggregation of environmental chemicals. Are you concerned about the vaccine schedule for children that just seems to keep growing and growing and growing and growing?
Yeah, the vaccine schedule has expanded out of control. There appears to be a tremendous degree of corporate interest, and among the medical orthodoxy, just in a sense, a non-scientific religious belief in vaccines. So the vaccines, many of them are not medically indicated, clinically necessary, nor are they given at the right time of life, Alex. This is important. Let's say a healthy child born to a healthy mother, hepatitis B given on the first day of life and during childhood is at the wrong time. They should wait until they become a cardiologist or a surgeon and get it when they need it, when they're dealing with blood and body fluids. It's just at the wrong time. The same thing with tetanus. Again, healthy child today, born modern obstetrics, there's zero risk of neonatal tetanus. Now, it's different if babies are being delivered in the jungle of Africa, but in modern United States, Western countries, the tetanus vaccine is given at the wrong time. It should be when kids get older and there may be a risk of a deep tissue wound. So much of this is done during the delicate period of neurological and immunological development. And it's an opportunity, actually, for misadventure where there's harm caused by vaccination.
And what do you think is driving this, Dr. McCullough? And in a little bit, I want to get into the firing of everybody on this advisory committee on the vaccines, because that's huge. But what do you think is driving this constant addition of new and more shots to this thing? You mentioned corporate influence. Of course, we know that the Congress back in '86 protected them all from liability. What do you think are the drivers behind this phenomenon?
Yeah, honestly, Alex, I think it goes back hundreds of years. I have a new book out called, Vaccine Ideology, Mythology, and Reality with, historian John Leake. This goes back hundreds of years. Vaccinologists, including Edward Jenner and Louis Pasteur and Salk and Sabin, they all made bold claims and asked people to accept these products based on faith, not on scientific data. And so there is a religion that's built up on vaccines. You saw this during the Senate confirmation hearings of Kennedy and Bhattacharya. The senators were basically unhinged, screaming vaccines are safe. I recently testified in the Senate, and behind Senator Richard Blumenthal and Maggie Hassan, their assistants ushered in big poster boards making false claims, saying that vaccines saved millions of lives, specifically the COVID vaccines. They're simply false claims.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. We just interviewed some of the scientists behind another study recently that said they came up with these fake numbers by using fake models. So yeah, they saved millions of
Right.
lives because we had fake models predicting millions of deaths, and truly amazing, Dr. McCullough. I want to go to obesity for a minute. That's actually one of the highlights of the report. The report found that over 1 in 5 children today over 6 years old is obese. This is up more than 270% from just 50 years ago. And we now have, it says in the report, rates of severe obesity increased by over 500%. They talk a lot about the diet. What do you make of this incredible problem?
The data I quote is from USA Facts. It's pretty solid. Pediatric obesity essentially quadrupling from when I was a kid. And then adult obesity, again, in the 1960s was estimated 13%. I think that's generous. But obesity now 43%. Overweight and obese in adults now 70%. So it's a huge problem in adults. And the single most rapidly expanding group, if you will, are what's called the super obese. That's a body mass index greater than 50. So for most people, that's a woman over 250 pounds and a man over 350.
Wow, it's scary. And they got a chart in this report here that shows the rates of the United States relative to other countries. It's astounding. We are like off the charts compared to other places. And here's the graph with U.S. expenditures and our life expectancy based on how much we spend on health. We have much shorter lives, and we're spending massively more money. And it also talks about the national security implications that over 75% of our young people today are not eligible to join the military because they're so unhealthy. Dr. McCullough, what do we do to reverse the tide here?
Yeah, we've had decades of messaging on healthy dietary choices and exercise. And I can tell you what's happened. Essentially, RFK said enough is enough. We're pulling some of this stuff out of the food supply. I mean, we're essentially going to see changes. And so a great example in Texas is, we have 11% of Texans on food stamps, or what's called SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. 11% of our population, and a person gets over $100 a month for food. Well, they can no longer buy junk food, chips and pop and snacks and candy that we're going to encourage. In fact, they can spend that money on high quality sources of protein and fresh fruits and vegetables.
So it sounds like a good start, at least to me. I mean, I can't believe taxpayers are literally subsidizing junk food and obesity. But of course, here we are. Welcome to America in 2025. Dr. McCullough, I want to go briefly to some comments made by Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche, who, of course, has a long history of working with the vaccine industry. Actually, he was working with Gavi, basically a Bill Gates funded vaccine promotion thing. And he was saying in an interview with Steve Kirsch that we reported on last week that he expects to see a massive die-off over the next few years ahead, thanks to complications from the COVID, whether it be the turbo cancers or the clots or all these things. You are, of course, a cardiologist. You've been sounding the alarm about some of the side effects of these injections for a very long time now. Do you share his concerns? Are they overblown? Is it wait and see? What do you make of it? Are we not out of the woods yet when it comes to these injections?
Oh no, Alex, we're using a lab now, research lab in Germany, where we're finding the messenger RNA actually in human cells 4 years after the shots. It's not getting out of the body, for sure. This is very, very important to understand this. We're already seeing what Van der Bosch is predicting. You know, there's a dozen studies now showing all-cause mortality is rising among the vaccinated. And because the vaccine contributes to the common causes of death, which are cardiovascular disease, a 40% proportion, cancer, a 40%, and then other medical problems like blood clots, 20%, you know, it's going to be basically all-cause mortality proportionally increasing, and that's what we're seeing. We should actually be observing just the opposite. At the end of a pandemic, because of a culling effect of older, more frail people dying, we should see all-cause mortality go down, not up.
Yeah, it's very, very troubling. I want to switch gears a little bit. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just fired the entire advisory committee on immunization practices. Let's roll that clip real quick, and we'll come back to you in just a moment.
In terms of the changes to ACIP, this has been a long time coming. More than 2 decades ago, Congress investigated ACIP. The Government Oversight Committee found that, for example, that year, which was 2003, they gave one example that 4 out of the 5 people who added the rotavirus vaccine to the schedule had direct financial interest in that vaccine. One of those individuals voted the rotavirus onto the vaccine and sold his rotavirus vaccine that he had in development for $186 million. He said he won the lottery. That year, Congress said that 97% of the people on ACIP had undisclosed conflicts. People have known about this for years. You know, probably the worst example of malevolent malpractice has been adding all of these new products to the schedule without doing pre-licensing safety studies. Oh, in 1986, there were 11 vaccines on the schedule. Today, a compliant child must take between 69 and 92 vaccines to stay in school in some states. And not one of them has been safety tested in a pre-licensing placebo-controlled trial. And that is just malpractice. So the people who were in charge of that are now gone. And we're going to bring people onto the ACIP panel, not anti-vaxxers. We're bringing people on who are credentialed scientists, who are highly credentialed physicians, who are going to do evidence-based medicine, who are going to be objective, and who are going to follow the science and make critical public health determinations for our children based upon the best science.
What do you make of that, Dr. McCullough? Is this a good move? The media is attacking him as an anti-vaxxer. Does this make sense?
Wow. Well, yeah, I'll just name it for your show, Alex. The person who made all the money on the rotavirus vaccine is Dr. Paul Offit at the University of Pennsylvania. He's a frequent commentator on CNN and the mainstream media. So he actually ushered in the rotavirus knowing that he had a patent position on a rotavirus vaccine. That's how bad it is. So firing the entire panel is essentially a corruption sweep. And, you know, some of the former panel members have written papers in the mainstream medical journals, like Journal of the American Medical Association, kind of lamenting what's happened. They said, oh, this is, you know, science is gone and what have you. What's gone is their personal connections to the vaccine industry. But, you know, Kennedy should be careful. You know, anybody added to the committee should not have prior vaccine industry connections. And already some of the people on the panel, you know, the new panelists have claimed that they have, you know, procured billions of dollars of vaccines research for companies in the past. And we just can't have that. We should have doctors who see patients, those who really understand the regulatory science, pediatrics and adults. They should be medical specialists, and they should have an eye towards safety. We shouldn't have these people who don't see patients, who are vaccine developers or other people, again, installed on the committee.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know you've worked with and know a lot of the people involved. I hope they're calling you up for good advice, because I can't think of many who would give better advice. Dr. McCullough, we're almost out of time here. Before we went on, we were talking a little bit about the federal government now memorializing this ban on gain of function research, which, of course, the U.S. government was funding in Wuhan. The U.S. government's been funding all over the place. What are your thoughts on that? And will that help us prevent, say, a redo of COVID?
Trump in January 2025 says, no more dangerous gain of function research. We can't make another SARS-CoV-2 virus and get the whole world sick. And Jay Bhattacharya this month, the director of the NIH, memorialized this into a directive that says NIH research dollars for gain of function are gone. Now, very importantly, institutions, academic institutions, need to do a entire inventory of the research program and disclose gain of function research going on, because it can be funded by the Gates Foundation, the Chinese, others. And I think this is going to go a long way to cleaning up the problem. I think the actual methods need to be banned. We can't use this genetic engineering to make a more dangerous virus, bacteria, or fungi. And we can't do serial passage, because we now have good examples that the COVID-19 virus was a product of gain of function research, and so was the most recent clade or strain of bird flu that came out of the USDA lab in Athens, Georgia. So we're 2 out of 2 now for laboratory leaks. And we published, McCullough Foundation published this in our Focal Point Substack. There are lab leaks where people get sick in the United States every year. So, they can't do the research safely. It's got to stop.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm grateful that you're sounding the alarm on this. Dr. McCullough, you work with a lot of different things. You got a wonderful Substack, you and John Leake. I can't recommend highly enough for people to subscribe to that, folks. Go get it. Incredible updates on a regular basis. The McCullough Foundation. You've got a new book out, and you also are one of the leaders at the Wellness Company, which is one of our sponsors here. Talk to us about each of those real quick and how people can connect, how people can get the supplies they might need for the next medical emergency, even ivermectin, and also some of the protocols for if people took these COVID injections, how they might work on improving their health.
Well, quickly for information, everybody should go to Focal Points on Substack, sign up, get a free email every day. Support the McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. That's what allows me to have such an influence in the media and in Washington. And lastly, go to the Wellness Company, twc.health. Use promo code for Alex Newman and his show, twc.health. And I have to tell you, everybody should sign up. I think at the minimum, become a member. And then, there's different levels of membership. I'm a member at the highest level, Alex. I get free prescription drugs, free supplements, and free telemedicine for less than $100 a month. You can't do better than the Wellness Company. The emergency medical kits are absolutely essential to get through daily life at home, and particularly when traveling. And make sure you're on a good program for nutraceuticals and supplements. That means most people who've had COVID or have taken a vaccine should be on McCullough protocol, base spike protein detoxification with either spike support or the ultimate spike detox.
Yep. And I personally have recommended it to a bunch of people in my family, and they have said they feel better as a result. Yeah. And all those kits he was talking about, folks, I actually have them. They are great, packed with everything you need for the next contagion, for the next emergency. I wouldn't leave home without it. Dr. McCullough, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for all the work you're doing, and I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, do go check it out, twc.health. And when you use that promo code Newman, you're going to get 10% off most of that stuff. It's what I use and recommend to my own family. So go check it out, twc.health. And folks, this stuff that Dr. McCullough was talking about what they're doing to our children, the information in the Maha report, this ought to be in the front page of every newspaper. Ask yourself why it isn't. Why are they not talking about this? Why are our kids so incredibly sick? And why can't we get real answers? It's got to stop. It's absolutely got to stop. Stay with us. We're going to be right back here on the Sentinel Report.
In 1776, a nation was born, forged in the crucible of revolution. Brave men and women stood together fighting for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile. For free activation, use promo code Newman.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, thanks for being with us. We have an incredible guest with us. He's one of my go-to people for all things military, and there's so much developing. He's actually one of the top experts in the world on what's happening in Africa, so we're going to talk about that. But with all the military news happening, I don't think we can escape starting off with that. We've got Rubio just recently saying that we don't want regime change in Iran. We're not into regime change business here. We're into safety and security. We'll play that clip in a minute. But now Iran has just retaliated against the U.S. strikes by hitting some of our bases across the Middle East earlier today. Joining us to discuss is retired Colonel Chris Wyatt. He's the principal and CEO of the Indaba Africa Group. He's a retired Army military intelligence officer. He's been stationed all over Africa and beyond. Really knows his stuff. Chris, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Well, Alex, thank you very much. Yeah, very big news breaking this afternoon. We'll get to that. We were hoping to talk about South Africa, and I hope we can still do that in this short broadcast. But I want to say I love the background you've got set up there now. I see you've got the American flag and the Christianity flag. That's a brilliant combination. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming on, Chris. So let's I know right before you came here, you were actually on your own broadcast, which people need to sign up for, by the way, on YouTube, talking about the implications of this strike. Is this going to develop into a broader war, Chris?
Well, that's a very good question to ask here. I think President Trump made it very clear, and I've stated unequivocally since then, that what happened is that with the attack on the 3 nuclear facilities, the United States did not attack any infrastructure. The oil and gas facilities in the Arabian Gulf weren't touched. The power lines, the networks, the bridges, the roads, no civilian infrastructure, no civilians were attacked, no military bases. President Trump made it very clear that that attack was on the nuclear infrastructure and at the 3 bases. And he wants no further involvement. That's what he said. We don't want boots on the ground. We don't want to be involved in a war. And it was up to Iran. Well, Iran decided to strike back. Now, there's a lot of speculation what their goal was here. And I think a few people made some fair analysis, which I think has merit to it. The Iranian regime probably, because they announced this on television long before they launched the missiles, this was a propaganda effort to convince their population that they were still in control and still dictating terms. They said they launched these missiles and they were a great success. They took out all these places, none of which that happened. They did launch missiles, but Patriots seem to have intercepted almost all, if not all of them. And so I think that this may have been an effort by the Iranians to show and save face in Iran before their population. If President Trump shows restraint, this could be the end of it. And I hope that's the case. And the one problem I think President Trump would have had is if there were American casualties. But at this hour, it appears that no American casualties have been reported. And so the president can show restraint. And if he does show restraint, then maybe we can move on from this. And this will give Iran a chance to come to the table. But I don't think that the mullahs are legitimately interested in negotiating. We saw what they said in Switzerland. We're here, but we have nothing to talk about. The Iranians are complicit in crimes with the Israelis, and we're not going to talk to them. But they went to Switzerland and did want to talk to us. That was 2 days before we attacked their facilities. So I think, Alex, that we have a chance for this not to escalate. A lot of people running around and foolishly talking about World War III. The Russians are not giving Iran nuclear weapons. The Chinese are not giving them nuclear weapons. It's not going to happen. The Iranians are isolated. Now they're attacking their neighbors, and that's not going to go very well for them.
So obviously Iran looks isolated. A lot of Middle Eastern governments apparently enthusiastic about this Iranian regime being reined in a little bit. But they do have friends, including over in the Republic of South Africa, which kind of ended up on Trump's bad side. Chris, you're one of my go-to people for all things South Africa. In fact, for a lot of issues, and that's why I've recommended you to many people in Washington. But talk to us about South Africa. I mean, that was originally why I wanted you to come on. For the first time in living memory, at least for me. This is now huge news because Trump had Cyril Ramaphosa in the White House and kind of blew this issue up. What's going on with South Africa, and what are the implications for the United States?
Well, sadly for South Africa, when President Ramaphosa and his delegation returned to South Africa, they focused extensively on being rude and disrespectful to President Trump. They were busy running around and making jokes about the White House, the Oval Office meeting. In fact, several times Ramaphosa spoke in public, and he would joke. He went to one event where he was supposed to speak, and they turned the lights down. And he started joking and saying, I thought they were pulling a Trump on me. This is not going to go over very well in Washington. And their actions have not really been. They've been contrary to what they claimed when they were in D.C. They claimed that they disavowed the "kill the Boer" chantings of Julius Malema, and they said they would look into it. Then they came back to South Africa and said, "Well, I mean, that's free speech. Our Constitution allows people to sing that murderous song." They didn't use the word murderous. I'm using it, and so yeah, obviously. So it's been very much in opposition. What they said in the Oval Office is completely opposite of their behavior when they returned to South Africa. Now, the one thing with Iran is you're correct that the South African government, the ANC, the African National Congress, is in love with the Iranian regime. They have been for decades, but they're in love with lots of rogue regimes, Cuba, and in love with Hamas and Hezbollah, and they do things that support. In fact, the case before the International Court of Justice was prompted after a visit from Naledi Pandor, the former foreign minister of South Africa, went to Tehran, came back to South Africa, and magically the ANC was able to pay off 100 million rand debt that they'd had for 5 years, and also pay for a big birthday celebration. And people are wondering where that money come from. Well, maybe you should look a little bit north of Tehran. But they've been advancing the positions of Iran for some time here. The one interesting thing about this is that when the United States attacked Iran, the response from the South African government was sort of muted. They put a general statement out saying we condemn attacks and we ask for peace, but they didn't attack President Trump or the United States specifically, which was a smart move. And hopefully they'll stick to that line. But we are seeing things now from opposition parties and other parties in the government that are running around and talking about how Trump is evil and what's going on is wrong and the U.S. is a war criminal. So that's just white noise, though. That's not really going to affect the U.S. relationship. But the U.S. relationship with South Africa is not going to change for the better until the South African government makes changes. And Donald Trump has made it very clear. Now 145 race-based laws are simply not acceptable to the United States. We believe in equality under the law, and that's not the situation in South Africa. And that's what the U.S. government's beef is. There's a lot of focus on this issue about the ICJ case. That's the reason the U.S. has a bad relationship. The reason we have a bad relationship because of Elon Musk or Donald Trump. That's all nonsense. This relationship began fracturing around the year 2000. And shortly after that, in 2003, the South African government refused to issue an Article 98 waiver to protect U.S. troops who would be visiting South Africa under the Rome Statute. And ever since then, things have gone sideways. It's just that no one has ever said anything to South Africa until Donald Trump did so on February 7th, and that changed the game. The world now is looking at South Africa, and the lies that are being spread by politicians there are simply not floating as well as they once did.
Yeah. And Chris, you have, as you know, a huge following in South Africa. A lot of people look to you for accurate information. There's a lot of ideas about what should happen in South Africa to deal with this. I mean, there's talk of secession in the Western Cape. There's talk of introducing a new constitution with a federal structure. There's talk about allowing the different ethnic and minority communities to have more kind of control over their own affairs. And then there's talk of, mass exodus to the United States under this refugee program that Donald Trump issued with an executive order. What is your opinion about these different options? How should South Africa move forward, and what should that relationship with the U.S. look like in the last couple minutes we have?
Well, I think the smart move here would be for the ruling party, the African National Congress, which is in a grand coalition now, for them to start looking at rescinding some of the more egregious race-based laws, which would stem the flow of immigration. It's not just the United States. There are millions of South Africans living abroad, black, white, and brown, in the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, U.S. Many people living abroad because they can't get work in South Africa because of their skin color or because of the stupid policies that the government has in place. If the South African government begins rescinding some of these policies like expropriation without compensation, the National Health Insurance Initiative, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, and this ludicrous 3% tax to take from corporate profits to fund black-owned businesses only, not all businesses, but just black-owned businesses. If they start to rescind some of that, then there's hope for South Africa. If they continue on the path they're currently on, people will continue to flee the country. The human capital will flee South Africa. The infrastructure collapse will continue, and the situation with the United States will not improve. As far as what option, whether it's Cape secession or the Zulus seceding in KwaZulu-Natal or people leaving the country, all of those are possibilities. But I think the most likely possibility, if the ANC doesn't begin to rescind this stupidity, is the country's just going to implode from within. Whether that leads to secession or not is a whole other ball of wax, and we'll have to see. That's been a topic of the Western Cape for well over a decade now, and it really hasn't gone anywhere because the party that has control of that province is the Democratic Alliance. And despite the fact that their premier, Alan Winde, promised to hold a referendum on Cape independence, he refuses to do so. And so until they hold a referendum, they really have no legal options going forward unless they want to resort to force arms, which would be a bad decision. So I think that the future for South Africa is up to the African National Congress. And if they don't change, the country will just collapse into a third world state.
Yeah, and that seems to be the likely scenario now based on current trends. Chris, really appreciate your insight. We're going to have to get you back for a longer segment. There's so many other things I want to talk to you about. But thank you, sir, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Tell the folks real quick, how do they sign up for your broadcasts on YouTube?
Very easy, folks. You go to YouTube and you type in at Colonel Chris Wyatt. That's my channel that covers the globe with big focus on Africa and the U.S. And also my original channel, which was censored by YouTube, but then restored after 23 months. That's at Real Chris Wyatt. But the focus, most of my content is on at Colonel Chris Wyatt on YouTube.
Excellent. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your analysis, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right, folks, stay with us. Coming up in just a moment, we've got the man who's going to replace the neocon Lindsey Graham in the U.S. Senate in just a moment.
Are you concerned about your child's education? Have you considered looking into alternatives to public school but don't know where to start? Greater Than I Ministries will give you the tools you need with a free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Biblical Worldview video series. Available on DVD or streamed to your home or device, this series will thoroughly equip you and your family with the truth you need about the battle of ideas being waged against our families and our nation. And our free Home Educators Kit will provide you with links directly connecting you with all the resources you need if you're considering rescuing your children from the public indoctrination schools. Go to gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top to receive your free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Worldview video series. Again, that's gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report, folks. Donald Trump has been making some noise about Lindsey Graham, who at least publicly presents himself as Mr. MAGA. I love Trump. I love America. I love the Constitution. But he never met a war that he didn't want your kids to go die in. Not him, but your kids. Trump apparently has had enough. He just put out a very interesting little video warning Lindsey Graham and also Mike Pompeo about, this exact kind of warmongering. Let's play this, and we're going to get his opponent in just a moment.
And what's been right about that? Ukraine, you've been making progress towards a peace deal, but I don't know if you know this, but Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo were there on the ground in Ukraine, seemingly doing the opposite, trying to provoke the Ukrainians to keep fighting. What do you think of that?
Well, we're going to see, and people have to be very careful with what they say. They got to be very careful with their mouth, because their mouth can get them into a lot of trouble.
Warning directly to Senator Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo. Joining us now to discuss all this and more is the man challenging Lindsey Graham for that Senate seat. His name is Mark Lynch. Back in the 70s, Lynch, the president of Jeff Lynch Appliance Center, is a dad, sold appliances, done a lot of work. And today, Mark's journey is quite a bit different. So he's guided by his faith, and he is now running for that U.S. Senate seat. And as I understand from folks in South Carolina, has a very real chance of actually winning this election. He's been married for 37 years. He's got children, grandchildren. He's got 110 exceptional employees. He's an ordained deacon at the Burnsview Baptist Church in Greer, South Carolina. Mark, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for having me on today.
It's an honor to have you, sir. And I know you've been doing the rounds. I saw you on some really big broadcasts recently. Talk to us about Lindsey Graham. Why did you decide to jump into this race and challenge really a very well-established career politician?
Yep. It all started back in, I guess, 2014 when I was trained in intelligence in our country, fighting the Islamic terrorist threat at the local level, and working with those gentlemen that helped lead that at the anti-terrorism division of the FBI. And I was asked to run in 2020 for a state Senate seat. I almost won. I lost by 5%. And people got to know me, know my stance on things, and that I'll hold the line and not compromise. And they appreciated my leadership ability and asked me to run for office. And we've been praying about it these last 4 years. And here we are. God called us to this new adventure and mission trip in Washington to go to the swamp. And we said, yes, we've accepted the opportunity.
Yeah, well, praise the Lord. It's really, in my opinion, past time for somebody to challenge this guy. If you look at his Freedom Index score, it's literally a 57%, folks. That's a failing grade. If you're not familiar with the Freedom Index, it's something we produce at the New American Magazine. We take the constitutional voting record of the different members of Congress, all of them, and 100 is a perfect constitutional score. A 0 is a perfect anti-constitutional score. Lindsey Graham is one of the worst Republicans. He's literally got a failing grade. And this coming from one of the most conservative states in the union. Talk to us about your views on the Constitution and Lindsey Graham's voting record. I mean, what do you think about his voting record? Is this part of what motivated you to get involved?
Yes, we've, after my state Senate race, we formed an organization, an activist group, and we've been using the Freedom Index to educate voters in South Carolina. We have a lot of people moving here from other parts of the country, and they're so happy they're in a red state till they see our elected officials' true voting record, and they're astonished. And so that and the other scorecards that you can see across the country, and all 4 of them, the Heritage Action, Conservative Review, the Liberty Score, he's failing in every one of them. And so he's not really a true Republican. Breitbart contacted us back in March and asked about our campaign. They said, we've never seen Lindsey move to the right this quick in a campaign cycle. And we gave them the article that talked about Obama's chief pollster, Paul Harstad, talking to John Podesta, who was in charge of Pizzagate. Everybody remembers that, with the child sex trafficking ring. And in their internal email correspondence between the two of them, they were identifying Lindsey as the greatest ally they had ever had and would have to the Democrat Party in Obama's campaign. And so that's who he is. He's betrayed the Republican Party of South Carolina. He's betrayed America, and he's stabbed Donald Trump in the back many times. And you mentioned the Ukraine thing. When he's been going over there working with Zelensky like he's the Secretary of State all of a sudden, that's very dangerous. Trump has been promoting peace in the Ukraine, and Lindsey's promoting war. And he's been uncovered under DOJ investigations with USAID. There's a lot of money he's been handling that looks like he's been getting his hands on it. And everybody knows he's a warmonger. And, when this new war opportunity kind of came out, and are we going to help Israel, and those kind of conversations began weeks ago, Lindsey said, game on. He's all for more war, because his greatest contributors have been Lockheed Martin and Boeing. When you look at his campaign election treasury account, where his donations come from, and he loves starting wars, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And actually, we got a couple clips I want to roll. This is Graham talking to the leader of Ukraine, Zelensky. Let's roll that clip.
I want to tell you and your people, you're the ally I've been hoping for all my life. Not one American has died defending Ukraine. You've taken our weapons and you've kicked their ass. And I'm very proud to have you as our ally.
Yeah, I mean, the guy talks like he's like the president of the United States. Like, you're my ally. What do you mean? You're a senator from South Carolina. That's not your job to be doing that. That's really, really weird. And we got another clip of him warmongering with Iran. Let's roll that one.
Chapter on the largest state sponsor of terrorism in modern history. We got a chance to end a threat to the state of Israel forever by replacing this regime with something better. And I do believe the biggest winner of the Ayatollah leaving would be the Iranian people. So pray for our troops in harm's way. There are risks associated with any operation. They join the military to keep their country safe and to make the world a better place. And taking on the Ayatollah does both. To our friends in Israel, we have your back. We're praying for success. You've tolerated too much too long, and to the world. You have normalized trying to kill the Jews. When Israel's attacked, nobody says a word about it. If France were attacked, what would the French do? What would we do? So the days of expecting Israel to sit on the sidelines and not go to the heart of the beast are over. Take this regime down, make the world a better place.
Well, they took themselves down. Donald Trump, I mean, God bless him. He's given them every opportunity. Look what he was able to pull off with India and Pakistan as that situation was heating up. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and so the Trump administration has so far been pretty clear that they're not interested in getting us sucked into another regime change war. We saw Libya, what a success. We saw Iraq, we saw Afghanistan. If you ever feel useless, remember it took the U.S. government 20 years and trillions of dollars to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. I mean, he's probably right. The world would be better without the crazy mullahs over in Iran. But what do you think, Mark? I mean, should the American soldier, should the American taxpayer be engaged in policing the world, overthrowing governments, and all the rest of it?
Absolutely not. Only unless it's a threat to America.
Yep.
You know, Israel is blessed. It's a blessed nation. God's got his hand on that country.
Yep.
And they're doing mighty well on their own. And, you know, this has been a hard chessboard to navigate through because there's not really many good answers with what do we do with this. But I appreciate Trump negotiating. He gave them 60 days to make a decision, probably another 10 up to 70 days. And we did pull off a great mission here. It doesn't mean that we've decided to send troops in. It means we just destroyed bases we understood that were too close to producing nuclear warheads and missiles that could travel across the seas and bomb other countries. And with that knowledge, we had to do the right thing. There's just no other answer. And so we had that capability that Israel didn't. And I think now it's time for us to sit back and see what else happens. And we've made the world realize again that Trump's in office. He'll do what he says. We're not playing around. And so we do have security through strength, but we're not about war. That's the last ditch effort, according to the Constitution, is for us to get into war. And it's only to be America first related.
Yeah, and that's something for Congress to declare. In fact, I was in Israel about a decade ago and had an opportunity to sit down with the deputy speaker of the Knesset, their parliament over there. And he was very much in favor of having the Israelis go strike the Iranian nuclear program. But what he said is, hey, we don't want American money. We don't need to be taking your money. And by the way, we're tired of your government telling us what to do. We ought to take care of our own security without having to run to Washington every other day to ask whether we have permission to do this, that, or the other. And I happen to agree with the man. Mark, what would you do as a U.S. Senator representing the state of South Carolina? I mean, what are some of the big things on your agenda to make the United States a better country, to get the Constitution enforced? What are some policies that you would be really passionate about?
Well, I'm definitely for closing the border. We've got our own problems right here at home, inside our homeland, with the invasion we've been under the last 10, 15 years with our enemies from Iran pouring across our borders into secret cells across the country. They've been here for years in training camps, and nothing's been done about that. We've got to get rid of the enemies within Congress that are of that regime, and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and people like that are in our government helping make laws, and they're waving Palestinian flags when Israel's attacked on October 7th. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we've got to start calling our enemies who they are, our enemies, and we've got to deal with those at home. The other thing I'm for 100% is true pro-life. Lindsey Graham just got acknowledged and endorsed by 3, I would call partial life organizations that he received their endorsements because he was okay with murdering children inside the womb up to 15 weeks. And he voted for women in 9 states can receive an abortion up until the moment before delivery if they so choose. And that's as wicked as it gets right there. We've killed over 63 million unborn, unprotected children in our country. Hitler killed 6 million Jews. We've killed 63 million of our own. And so I want to see that end, and I'll do everything I can to bring that to a close.
Amen. It's so desperately needed. Now, you alluded to this earlier, Mark, but Lindsey Graham has suddenly become really conservative again, right? He's out on the campaign talking about how much he's going to serve the people of South Carolina, how much he wants the government smaller, how much he wants the Constitution enforced. Is this a real conversion, or is this just typical political rhetoric?
No, that's the repeat of history that we've seen through every cycle. He just started earlier this time because he's got a viable opponent.
Wow.
And it's time for him to go down.
So, Mark, a lot of established politicians who've been in office for a long time, they've got all the big donors, they've got all the connections, all the consultants. As you know, they're very hard to dislodge. Lindsey Graham, of course, is not really popular with conservatives, but do you think you have a real shot at taking him down?
Absolutely. Lindsey's just a man. You know, God appoints those in authority and he removes them. And I think he's removing him this time because he's flushing, and I don't think he can stop it. He's given us a gift every day. There's something else he does all the time that's just making him look worse and worse and showing his true colors this time. And, you know, I know Trump endorsed him, and we love Trump. We respect him. We're glad he's back and doing the job he's doing as our great commander in chief of this great nation here in America. But the voters across the country and in our state of South Carolina all said his endorsement won't save Lindsey this time.
Good. Yeah, I've been a little bit disappointed with some of the endorsements from Trump over the last few years. I mean, I'm very happy with a lot of what he's doing, but some of those endorsements coming from his lower level staff people, I think, are really questionable, to say the least. So we really wish you well, Mark. What's the best way for people to get involved in the campaign? How do they learn more? Obviously, your website, lynchforsenate.com, lynchforsenate.com. For the folks in South Carolina who want to get involved, and for the folks outside of South Carolina who want to learn more, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they can go to our Twitter page, Mark Lynch, on Twitter, Lynch for Senate. And we have a link tree there that'll connect you to our Facebook information, our website, Instagram, everywhere we are. And, you know, we win this on our knees in prayer. I appreciate everybody's prayer to bring back God first again in this country. That's what makes America great again. That's how this Constitution operates, with a godly, moral society in this great nation. That's what I stand for. That's our platform, to make God first again. And so pray for us. And of course, it takes money. We're committed to this thing. You know, our business has been successful. I've been blessed. My wife and I prayed, and we pushed $5 million of our own money into this campaign. I know Trump wants to see if you got skin in the game, and I do. And our polling's way up. We're looking great. And so God's showing us favor, and things are falling into place. And we just need everybody's support out there to take this opportunity to get rid of Lindsey Graham. And I'm your guy that can do it. And so we need your vote, your donations, your prayer, and sign up if you can help on our webpage and our Facebook page.
All right, folks, you heard it here. lynchforsenate.com if you want to learn more. Mark, I really appreciate your concluding words there, too. So important. We're never going to make America great again without inviting God back to this country, without repenting of the babies that have been slaughtered, the evil that unfortunately has overtaken so much of this country. So really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. We wish you well, and I hope we can get you back on with updates as you fight this really historic and very significant battle.
Yes, thank you, Alex. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, and you as well. All right, folks, that is all we have time for today on the Sentinel Report. But I do want to encourage you to go check out that website, lynchforsenate.com. You know, there are very few Republicans in the Senate who have been as consistently against the Constitution, the values and principles of the Founding Fathers, the biblical principles that underpin this country. There's a few others as well, but Lindsey Graham is really one of the top ones. And he's in a really conservative state. He's not in a purple state. He's in a red conservative state. So we have a real opportunity here to put a fighter in there and remove a neocon, a rhino, a warmonger. So if you're in South Carolina or care about this issue, go check it out, lynchforsenate.com. I'm Alex Newman. Thank you for tuning in to the Sentinel Report. We appreciate you so much. Until next week, thank you for watching. God bless you all.